It's not a matchup that we've seen too often, ladies and gentlemen. So we are still thinking about it, even us here on the caster desk. But of course, anything can happen in the Land of Dawn. So let's just go head straight into game number 1 in this best of 3 series between Morocco as well as Madagascar.
The thing I always say here, Turner, is like when you look at this, because whenever you have a team that you have not seen anything from, and this is something we always went through with online qualifiers, like you have to just see and come to that conclusion. Like you only have a hypothesis before game number 1, and then by the time you're done, you're like, all right, I have somewhat of a conclusion. You know, you can go through the scientific method yourself when you don't know too much about these teams. Because again, for a lot of people that might even just be watching competitive MLBB, a lot of them rely on the websites, you know, to find out some information, maybe the picking order, the things they like to ban. But again, with this, from the Moroccan team, we don't have much information, but I do like the lineup that they have. Like, this is a very standard, I would say, lineup in the current meta, and it's good from beginning to the end game, you know? So even if they falter a little bit in the early game and they get punished by Madagascar, they still have great potential to scale up mid to late.
They do, they do. They have Nezuko on the carry. I think it's important to note that Nero before this tournament was actually a tank player.
Wow.
So she's coming in with a Nolan. We'll see how she performs on it, but she's usually on the Fredrins and the Boxias. So it looks like both of these teams have actually adapted to the patch, right? They've adapted to the meta, because even before, for Madagascar, Karen mostly played Carmilla, but now she's rocking the Hylos. That wasn't meta up until recently. We haven't really seen a Hylos in the roam quite often, but usually in the EXP lane. But right now, it does look like Karen is focusing on figuring out a way to dominate in this utility works.
I just love I love the names in IESF. It's always kind of like a fun thing to go ahead and point out throughout the tournaments, but they're going to go for the turtle. Nero's going to be able to secure that turtle first off with the first blood going in the hands of Karen, and now they're going to fight a little bit more. Flicker from the U1. Jumps out with the Primal Raft. So already off to a good start here. Objective secured for Morocco. First blood, though, for Madagascar.
Yeah, that's a 1-for-1 trade for both of these teams. But technically, Morocco does have a little bit of an edge, right? 300 gold plus from the turtle. They went out with very little casualty as well. And it looks like, though, now Madagascar are going to be utilizing that space to go in for some punishment onto Nezuko in the top lane.
Karen gets the stun off. They pop the Vengeance. Should be able to be tanky enough. I heard that. I know you heard that sound too. I was like, wait, what? Where's the Joe? Is that what you're thinking too?
Yeah.
No. But ultimately, there's no kill there. It was a good try, good attempt. But that's just... the Vengeance was enough to keep Nezuko alive. Plus the Brave Smite. You know, that's something we have to point out too. The emblem there really playing its part in that 1 versus 3 for a while. So they find themselves once again kind of just farming up, getting to the point. We're still a minute or so, yeah, about almost a minute away from that turtle. So both teams can find what they need, get adjusted here. And I think if you take a look at what we just saw in the top lane, where they really tried to force that, you know, force that fight, try to get that kill, it shows that they just don't have enough initiation just yet. Now, part of that is, you know, the way that Karen utilizes the Glorious Pathway. A lot of the times I feel like when we see Hyloses, the mistake that a lot of them make is using it on a defensive. Like, it works way better, obviously, if you can be offensive with the Glorious Pathway ultimate from this Hylos. But we'll see. We'll see what Karen decides to do. Because you can pair it up really well with the fact that you have the Spirit of Destruction. So great opportunities here for Madagascar. We'll see how they play around it, because we're seconds away from this turtle.
Yeah, it looks like the setup is there. Oh, wait a second, Aina.
Well, Aina gonna jump in. There's the Glorious Pathway we were just talking about. Vengeance could be used already, with a whole lot thrown down on Ellis. Aina gets caught in. Couldn't find the kill on Nezuko. So it's already 1 down in the exchange. And they'll go ahead and look for more, possibly the turtle. They're gonna force them back further. So Ellis way too low to contest this. She has to get back to base. Great fight there, though, from Madagascar.
It's so strange, right? Because technically Madagascar was the one to lose 1 member, but Morocco, they were the ones pressured out of that neutral objective take. And so again, it's a little bit of a win here. Wait a second. Oh, that's a lot of damage from Nero in that top lane. Dusavi going to be forced to recall. And that does give Nezuko a little bit more time to get this nuke, right? To be able to pick up that tower on the top side is going to be huge and paramount to the success that they will be getting in the mid-tier turret. But it looks like Nero is actually going to be picking that up for free. So 2 neutral objectives now already taken in by Morocco. A big start for Morocco.
Yeah, this is what they wanted to do. Again, you pointed it out here, Eterna. You know, they in that fight, Madagascar actually found a win. Even though, they lost Ina. She made a mistake, kind of getting caught under the wall there. But overall, they were able to push out Morocco, but then they get the objective. So this might be all part of the plan, you know, for Morocco. Like, hey, we can play some of the disciplined game. We can get these objectives that we need and work around it. And if we have to just kind of wait for that power spike to fall off from Madagascar, because, you know, again, when we talk about Layla, a hero we don't see often, like at all, except if it's a super niche pick, like you mentioned for Dusay, this is what she played in the online qualifier, you know?
Yep.
And she found success on it. And that's exactly why you see Morocco put so much pressure here on her right now, too. They're going to force her out from the turret. They're going to find the stun, too, and she's taking way too much damage as Neko will pick up the kill on that. Madagascar having a tough time keeping her alive.
Yeah, we're hearing the claps from the crowd as well here in the arena. And it's a big deal, right? Because technically, Dusavia on the Layla, she has the range. But because Layla doesn't have an escape mechanism, she's forced on a flicker. So when she's engaged like that, no ability for the Purify. Going to be very difficult for her to get out of the sticky situation. But wait a second.
Penalty zone into the Spear of Alpha. Numenal Blast going to find multiple targets, though. Yet one jumps in with the Primal Wrath, lays down the damage, too, in the mid lane. No one falls, though, but they'll hold it together on a response. But Nero picks up a kill on Ina again.
Yeah, Ina's not having the greatest of times, right? 0-1 KDA so far. This Alpha hasn't really found that much success, right? Neutral objective takes has been 100% for Morocco for the most part. So it looks like Morocco is still claiming that control up until the 7th minute of the game. And as we take a look at the in-game equipment, right? We already have the Enchanted Talisman coming from the Lilia. She actually skipped in the boots. So she really is just banking on the fact that she can utilize her skills as much as she can to be able to deny these neutral objective takes that Madagascar, once again, 0% success rate on.
Well, this is tough, because when you look at this, I mean, this is the swing already in the favor of Morocco. Especially the fact that they got all 3 turtles. They've got themselves a nice gold lead at this point, you know, 4,000 or so ahead. And even with the Ice Queen wand being picked up by Neko here, like this is already troublesome because Lily already does a lot of damage. It's kind of annoying to deal with, right? But now you're going to be slowed. And that's the tough part to deal with if you're Madagascar. You know, how do we deal with this pressure? So they hold on to the top side. They go on at 40. When she gets taken out really quickly. Glorious Pathway dropped once again. Alice could be in trouble. The rest of the team trying to make their way for the fight. Going to go in a little bit further. Now there's the response. But wow, there's the damage from Dusay, like we talked about. This Layla will play a part, especially when we get to the mid-late game transition. Neko will try to hold him down. Spear of Alpha once again. She goes in, takes a brunt of the damage. Ina, though, gets the black shoes out from Neko, and she's still going to take the damage from the glooms, and she'll finally fall. But they wanted the turret, and they got it.
Oh man, you were talking about how Lilia is a destructive force, very annoying, and we actually saw that coming to play against Ina, right? She was on a roll earlier on, utilizing her kit, utilizing her skills to be able to get more advantage over Morocco, but Neko with the black shoes turned it completely around. That was a huge outplay for her. 2-0-1 just now, and if we take a look at the damage dealt, she dealt 34k worth of damage. She's dealing the most actually right now with only 2 items, by the way. So as this game progresses and as both of these teams are going to be utilizing more of their kit to look for team fights, right? The advantage that Neko has as the Lilia is going to increase tenfold, especially when they start grouping up against one another, and especially if they take these fights into places where it's very, the Indo term is sampit. What is like, the translation? Like very crooked areas
I was going to say
of
like
the map.
I know what you're talking about. The little, now you're making me have that moment. Yeah, I know what you're talking about though. It's like those small gaps within the jungle, basically, right? Little choke points.
Choke points.
That's where we're going.
There you go. Points. It looks like Morocco is putting Madagascar in a choke point as well, as it looks like they're going to be the ones picking up that Lord uncontested. Do you think Madagascar will be able to defend this?
You know, if we look at the clear speed on the defensive, I think it's okay. Oh, hold on. They're looking to make a play up here on Nezuko once again. She's going to pop the Vengeance. Oh, she dodges that. And here's the response from her team. Ellis joins too. Nezuko will survive again. Glorious Pathway going to be dropped down. Dusavi, she could be in trouble. The chase down from Neko. She goes in. This is the power of the Ice Queen wand. She's going to slow down Karen too as she picks up a double against Madagascar. Talk about the response, the teamwork from Morocco.
Yeah, it's huge. Again, Neko as well doing work. She actually has 3 items down with a lantern as well. That's not a common item pathway that you would expect from Lilia, but I guess she's feeling it, right? I guess she's feeling the confidence. She's going to be one of the main damage dealers now up until this point as compared to Nezuko. And I think we kind of forgot to mention that Nezuko on the carry opted for Vengeance.
Yeah, like that's what I was saying, you know, early on. I was like, man, with the Brave Smite and the Vengeance, it's good. Like, you can go 1 versus 3 and survive. How many times has Nezuko done this, you know? And that's something that I feel like Madagascar has really struggled with. They're like, how do we solve this equation? How do we get to the point where we're taking down Nezuko? They only got her 1 time, but the fact that she's able to buy so much time, so much of a distraction, is what's really difficult here for Madagascar, you know? And at this point, I think if you go back to your question earlier on, Eterna, how do I feel about the Valir? How do I feel about the lineup here, the Layla? Well, it's tough because, you know, with that, oh, and you know what? This just clicked in my head. I know why I've heard that sound now. This is the skin from the Valir. That's why. It took us a while, but I was like, why do I keep hearing? Because we're so used to seeing KOF Cho.
Yeah.
It's KOF Valir.
I didn't even know Valir had a KOF.
What? What do you mean? The bingo event that we just had like a month or 2 ago?
I think I'm so focused on the Aurora
with the
skin.
Masha? No, the Masha Valir.
Yeah, I skipped that one because I didn't have enough diamonds, Naisu.
Paquito?
Not all of us are as rich as you.
Okay, I don't have all of them. Going back to the game. That's why. It just, like, my brain clicked, and here's the glorious pathway from Karen. Neuron Blast going to be dropped down, and there's the response. Vengeance going to be popped as well. Fighting in the jungle. Aina, though. Ellis will still be able to survive, but Nero goes in on the backside. She gets a pickup. Karen's the one to fall. They'll find 2, but Yehuan goes in the base. She's enough of a distraction. Not much is going to happen there, but Dosavi will go down from Nero again. She has been on the hunt, and she's picked up multiple kills, and now she'll pick up the Lord.
1 for 4 trade. Ladies and gentlemen, Madagascar once again putting their name on the map as their mid laner, as Neko is the one to burst through the ranks, take that mid side turret, and alleviate the pressure for the rest of the members of the team to pick up yet another Lord push. 13 minutes in, and it looks like it's a... Man, I can't math. How much is that? I'm so used to the plus and minuses and the gold differences.
Here, I'll do some quick math for you. About 10,000 gold.
10,000 gold lead for Morocco. There it is. And it looks like that Lord is going to be marching down in that mid lane. And again, right, the wave clear has just been a big question mark. Sure, Dusavi has the range, but with the way that Madagascar have been playing, with the way that they've been able to burst through that front line and dish out the damage onto Dusavi, who unfortunately at this moment doesn't have the flicker, it's going to be a challenge.
40 seconds for that to be up, but I don't know if she's going to have 40 seconds as Morocco looking to punch in game number 1 here. Karen tanks a ton of damage as she now falls. It's a double once again for Nico, and the focus on the base too. And that's going to be game number 1. Going the home squad here. Morocco. They're going to feel really good about that one.
Yeah, I would too, right? I mean, the debut performance coming from Morocco, they weren't there. They were only able to witness and watch and observe what happened in the African online qualifiers. But, you know, being on the big stage, it seems like no nerves, no nothing, right? They performed exceptionally well. And of course, it does goes to show how much support they're also getting here at the venue. It's almost a full crowd.
It is, you know, and with that, I think I'm going to reference what we heard from Don Big earlier. He said the same thing about the men's team. He was saying that, you know, game number 1, because again, like you said, this is their first time on the big stage, and they were a little nervous. I think even when you look at the female team here, maybe they had a little bit of jitters as we're looking at the highlights, but think overall, like, they played this so well together. It surely doesn't seem like they've only had, what, 20 days?
20 days.
Like, what did they do in those 20 days?
I'd like to know, right?
Get me to that level in 20 days. You know, it took me a lot longer to get to this point, but I would say overall the way that they played this was really great to see. And like you mentioned, you know, for Nico here, like, this Lilia was unstoppable. I don't think they killed her at all. And, you know, even for Nezuko, early on, how many times did she go 1 versus 3 with a vengeance on this carry?
Yeah, it's something that we don't see quite often, right? Usually carries are utilized to be able to utilize that flicker. No, not the flicker, the purify.
Yeah.
Right? She's one of the main marksmen, I would say, in the gold lane that is able to pick up that spell. But here, Nezuko rocks with the vengeance, and apparently it worked really well for them, right? The fact that she was able to win out the lane at the early portions of that 1v1 against Delilah, she was 1 or 2 EXP levels ahead. And then Neko, again, right? Looking at the highlights, I just can't stop looking at the way that she performed, right?
Yeah.
Lilia is such a carry, honestly, in certain aspects and in certain compositions. Because of the fact that they're so great at clearing that mid lane, having that prio to help in those side lanes. And that's exactly what we saw from MOROCCO earlier on. But ladies and gentlemen, we are moments from a break.
Yep, we're going to take a breather in just a second here. But again, this was a great game number 1 that we saw from MOROCCO. We'll see if, you know, Madagascar, if they actually are going to be able to adjust from this, because I think it was a really unique lineup, number 1. Obviously, that's already kind of what we said with the Valir and Layla pick. You did mention that they found success with this during the online qualifier, but, you know, I feel like ultimately against a team that is MOROCCO or is playing the meta as we're used to seeing, that kind of lineup's probably not going to work too well, you know? So I don't know if we'll see something else other than a Layla, because I know you said it was a comfort pick also. I think they could have also made the lineup work if they got the advantage that they were looking for, you know, early on, because 14 and 14-20 in, this is too much of a deficit that you have to work against. So with this expensive lineup, I think that's the best way to put it for Madagascar. It was very expensive to make this work, and I would say Layla is like such a late game hero. You know, she needs a lot of time to scale up to get that long range advantage too, and it just felt very difficult for Madagascar to make it work.
I would have been really interested in the items, honestly, right? Because you're right, Lila does take a little bit more time, and I'm wondering if whether or not we would have seen a Malefic gun. Right? Something that we haven't seen too often, but I do think that it would work well against with the Lila in her composition.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see that adjustment coming into game number 2, because remember, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a best of 3. There is still time for Madagascar to come back. And of course, it also poses a question. Madagascar have gone undefeated up until this point. Will this first loss be the fall or the way that they move up? So ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go on a short break now. We'll see you after for game number 2. Number 2 in this best of 3 series between Madagascar and MOROCCO. Can MOROCCO go for a clean 2-0 and make their way forward into the brackets, or can Madagascar come back and force a game number 3?
We'll see how that plays out. I think too, just to take note, you know, the fact that I don't know how often you see this anymore. Like the Julian picking up the killing spree emblem, I think for the most part. What do we see in our region? Is it mostly the mage emblems? Like,
yeah, Impure Rage.
Impure Rage, Lethal Ignition to an extent, like, right? So this is an interesting kind of switch up too. See how it plays a part. Karen, though, going to go back to base. I don't know how much you're going to be able to do against there, but top side, Nezuko going to be in trouble. Heals back up, though, quite a bit with the kit, popping the Inspire, too. Also, she's running the War Cry emblem.
Exactly.
So that's great, and that's part of the reason. You know, how many times is Nezuko going to deal with this? Like the 1 versus 3 plays. And this time around, she doesn't even have Vengeance.
War Cry Melissa is interesting.
Is it?
Do you not think? Because usually...
It's easy to proc.
It is. And it does give her a little bit of a benefit in that 1v1 lane.
6%.
But as a general scope, wouldn't you prefer Melissa on something that can transfer over to the later stage of the game? But wait a second.
Oh, all right. They're already getting the flicker out, so that's fine. Now, back to the question. Something better for the late game?
Yeah.
Are you saying instead of the War Cry?
Yes.
What would be better?
What does Melissa utilize?
Maybe a quantum charge?
Quantum charge?
Yeah. I'm sure Miracle, if you're out there, let us know. I know he likes to play the Melissa, but going back to a turtle, who's going to be able to take it? They go in, and they secure the turtle here for Madagascar, but who's going to win the fight? They get the first blood already in the hands of MOROCCO, and now fighting it down under the Eternal Guard. Yewen's going to go back, and there's the Decimate that we were looking for from Nero. She's going to look for Karen next. She gets the double. And that's what we were talking about with this pickup in the Martiz. And that is the threat, especially in the early game. And they're going to take the resources on top of it all.
Yeah, they're taking everything left, right, and center. A 2-0 trade as well earlier on. And that is actually going to propel MOROCCO to a 1K gold lead. Looks like Nero is farming as best as she can. Her impact has been immense, and I'm wondering whether or not that's going to translate into the next neutral objective that will spawn in under 70 seconds. Meanwhile, Neko on the Nana in the mid lane, she's been clearing a lot quicker as well. So it does help with the rotations that we've been seeing, and it does help Nezuko as well get to that power spike as fast as she can. But meanwhile...
Nezuko going to try to jump in once again, drops down the go away. Eternal Guard going to find Nico. Should be able to get her down. Finally, Nezuko to fall. Yewen jumps in with the penalty zone, finds 3 targets, will swing the hammer down, gets a double, and they respond a little bit more. Nero might be a little bit too late, finds Karen, gets the knock-up in, looking for the Decimate once again, picks up another kill. MOROCCO answers to Madagascar.
Yeah, they answered with vengeance, right? That initially was a really good trade, right? They were able to pick off Nezuko, which is something that they really need to do, right? Stop that snowballing from happening, stop that power spike from happening. But MOROCCO with the response, very quick, despite it not being as clean as they would expect and as clean as they would want. The follow-up coming in from Ellis on the Matilda, being able to back that up and making it a 2-for-3 trade, by the way, was immense for MOROCCO.
You see what I'm talking about, Eterna? That was because of the shortcut, right? Yewen came in through the shortcut. She landed the penalty zone. And that's always the thing you have to be concerned of for Aina here. She drops down the shortcut. You got to remember, the enemy team can come through that portal too. And so that's something to always keep in mind. And now as this turtle's for the taking, Aina's going to jump in. She finds the target here. It's going to be Neko. She gets petrified, flickers out. Again, turtle going to be secured by Madagascar, but can they win the fight this time around? They're going to force Nero back. Crash course on Word a little bit more. Yewen going to go in further towards the buff, but I think it's just to the decision of let's not fight, let's not go down. We put pressure on the top side.
Yeah, discipline working their way here in the 5th minute of the game. Earlier on, before that skirmish happened, before that engage happened, we got a little peek into the items. And Mitsu on the Vexana, the person that you're seeing on your screen right now, she went Sky Piercer Vexana first item. No boots, no nothing, just complete Sky Piercer. Very aggressive so far, right? She hasn't picked up any kills, but I mean, Madagascar and MOROCCO, they need to be aware of that, right? They need to be aware of that proc from happening.
Sky Piercer Vexana is pretty crazy because honestly, like, you're already going to be able to land things really well with the Eternal Guard, but let's just say you hold off on the Eternal Guard a little bit longer and you let the team kind of initiate the fight, especially with a Julian here. That Eternal Guard alone and then following up the rest of the kit from Vexana could proc, get to the point where you're proccing that Sky Piercer. So we'll see, it's more so of like are they gonna get to the point in the game where they can make that work? Because again, last game was what, 14-ish minutes?
Yeah,
under 15
minutes.
So they've got to extend the game further, and not only because of that, but also because you have a Leslie. So once again, they're gonna drop it down, forcing them out of their side of the base, and all this really does is set things up for this turtle. Retribution was gonna be used though. So I'm not sure. They might have to wait a little bit longer. They're 10 seconds away from that turtle spawning.
Yeah, they need to buy a little bit more time if they want to get that 50-50 coming down. It looks like Chaos is level 8 right now, so she is 2 levels below. Technically, Nero has a bitter advantage when it comes down to that Retribution battle, but MOROCCO, they don't even have that as a prize, right? They're looking for more objectives. They're looking for more towers. That mid lane is going to fall. And remember, Madagascar, with Mitsu being one of the main sources of damage, especially in the early portion of the game, that Sky Piercer needs to get the stacks, right? She needs to get at least 8 to get full stacks.
Yep.
So we need to see a little bit. Oh, wait a second.
Coming zone from Yewon again. She's going to initiate the fight, and there's the Eternal Guard we were talking about. Aina goes down. Yewon in response, but Nero going for the Decimate. She won't get it this time as she stopped in her tracks. 2 fall for Morocco. Now Madagascar, they're not going to be able to get the turtle just yet, but if they can, they'll be 3 for 3. All the meanwhile, though, turret on the top side worked on by Nezuko, so they go ahead and trade around the map.
Yeah, big trade for Madagascar, right? Really putting them back into the game. The fact that Morocco were leading on neutral objectives and the fact that Madagascar have actually taken down Nero. Wait a second.
Oh, Circling Eagle going to be used. The hand sword goes in. They find the crash in forward. Chaos is going to fall, so Ellis did her job here. She's going to get out.
What?
Guiding Wind going to be used too. Still fighting for the turtle. They go. Retribution will be used by Nero. Cleans it up and now looks for Aina. She goes in with a Decimate, maybe on the wrong target there. But she gets pulled in. They get the objective though. Still might be on the hunt. They're going to force Aina back a little bit further and now possibly taking some resources from Madagascar here.
How did that happen? How did that happen? That was already the best scenario for Madagascar. Nero was nowhere near. Ellis, man, Ellis on Miss Matilda has been doing work for the team. The fact that she was able to pick off Chaos, the fact that she was able to buy time, re-engage, buy time for the rest of the members. Wait a second though, Nero.
Nero's going to be okay. They reinitiate. She still did use the Circling Eagle, but like you were saying, Eterna, Ellis has been on point, whether it's to initiate, whether it's to peel for the team, or whether it's to be a distraction. And you don't see Matilda often anymore, but when teams do pick it up, you're reminded of why she has so much utility. So right now here, Echo waiting patiently, but she's reliant on Ellis to be just fine in the exchange with that, even in the 2v1.
That Purify does get utilized, so that's definitely something that Madagascar can use to their benefit, especially when now they are looking for some trades over the map, right? Still Morocco holding that 3k gold lead and counting. And back to that point, right? During that team fight, did you take a look at the damage dealt chart?
I didn't. Tell me about it.
Chip had the highest amount of damage.
Chip?
Chip. That's a big question mark.
Well, right now, I don't know. Maybe it's just the buff. Like maybe it's like a hidden passive from eating the chips, because he actually eats chips in the game. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew that, because like when he's passive, right, he eats chips. That's why his name's Chip. But the reason why he usually tops damage meters, the actual answer for it, is because Crash Course is insane. Like Crash Course as an ability does so much damage, and then you pair it up with a Concussive Blast. It's so much damage to deal with, and usually if you go into multiple members of the enemy team, that hits multiple members, right? It's technically AoE.
See, I would agree with that if the numbers weren't so far apart. And it begs the question, where is the damage coming from Chaos, and where's the damage coming in from Mitsu?
That's a good, that is a good question. Because part of that is usually when you see the way that they work, right? Like, yeah, where is the damage from Chaos? You know, okay, there's the flip-flop that we saw, but here's the thing. With the fact that you have a Chip doing damage relatively well, that's what we see. You know, when Chip is picked up, he's picked up for a reason. Shortcut, and the fact that he can actually be quite a bit of a harassment with his kit. So again, that's part of the table here. And so Mitsu, like you were questioning, she's got the glowing wand now to pair up with the Sky Piercer. And Julian, exactly what I was expecting from Chaos, had that Genius Wand Starnium Scythe. So the combination really is that, you know, Chaos gets the, whether it's the Enhanced Chains or something off, and then you follow up with Mitsu's Eternal Guard. We'll see if they can pull it off here for this Lord fight. They're going to get caught out a little bit. Shortcut's going to be dropped down, but look at the damage coming out from Nezuko. It's already too much. Penalty zone into it all, too. It's a triple for Nezuko before she gets shut down. But that might be all they needed. 3 down for Madagascar and Morocco. We'll take the Lord.
Yeah, that was a 1-for-4 trade in favor of Morocco. And before they were able to get into that team fight, Nezuko was able to get the golden staff, so she completed her Holy Trinity, and we saw exactly the amount of damage and impact she had in that team fight that ultimately led to her picking up that triple kill. So it's huge. Madagascar, they need to be aware of these timings, right? They need to be aware of these power spikes. And when they go in for the next neutral objective, when they go against the next clash that they go for, they need to be aware of these. And right now, that Lord is going to be marching in that top lane, and it might just be one of the biggest factors as to how they lose these inhibitor turrets. Madagascar now, technically, they do still have Dusavi. They still technically have Mitsu with wave clear to try and defend it, but it really does depend on how Morocco will execute the way that they go in for this attack.
I guess that's where you got to see, you know, we've been asking this question for a while here, is how is this defense going to be for Madagascar? How is the fact that they have a Leslie who should be able to, you know, provide some damage, you know, to some of these team fights, but how will they go ahead and utilize the kits that they brought to this table in this game number 2? Because right now it looks like they're just going to be losing these base turrets, not really able to do anything against the pressure from Morocco. As both the bottom and mid base turrets went down, they could possibly make their way, swing up to the top, but the wave's already going to be pushing down that lane. So for Morocco, that might be all they get unless they somehow force a fight, force a situation against Madagascar, but it looks like those 2 turrets might be all they get for now. Oh, but Aina, and it could get spotted out too. They got to be careful. There you go. They're going to spot them out from that bush, forcing Ellis and the rest back.
That was already huge value, though. Remember, that was the first Lord of the game.
Yeah.
Right? 13 minutes, first Lord, 2 inhibitor turrets. That's massive value. And you can see even Morocco, despite that advantage that they had, they're still working with discipline. And that's very important, right? They didn't overcommit. They didn't take more than what they were gambling for. And then they had 0 losses. And still, with that, Morocco still hold over the control. They're controlling the tempo. They're strangling Madagascar into their own base. And it looks like it's a 5, 6, 7, 7k gold lead still for Morocco. As, oh, look at that damage even from Neko on the Nana. Oh, man. And remember, Nezuko already has a Malefic Roar to boot.
Oh, looking at the, I mean, okay, that's why, right? She has got her own Genius Wand. She's got the Lightning Truncheon, and then she's got the wings as well. So it looks like she's going, maybe, I don't know, maybe Holy Crystal next at that point. But, you know, it's very reminiscent of Game 1, Eternal. You know, how do you deal with Neko? She hasn't died. This time around, she doesn't have black shoes when she played the Lilia the previous game, but she's got that passive.
Yeah.
You know, so it's more or less, I don't know if that's the same. And that's kind of, again, for Madagascar, they're like, how do we even deal with this? Because, and I think it was such a brilliant pickup in the draft. You pick up a Nana, a hero you don't often see, but it was a great answer to the glorious pathway from Karen. You know, because how do you play around that ultimate now if you're most likely going to face just a ton of damage from Neko? So I think that's going back to the question, especially when this Lord makes its way down the mid lane.
How?
How?
How do they defend this? I mean, technically, like you mentioned, right, Neko could go Holy Crystal because the only person that has the Athena shield is Karen, right? So if they want to burst into the backline, that's definitely still possible, and it looks like this might be the end.
We'll see if they're able to pull it off. They're going to go in, focusing on the Crystal. Not sure if they even want to just win this fight or just win the game. Morocco will do it, just like their counterparts earlier on. They'll sweep the opponents, Madagascar.